It's showtime. Welcome, folks, to McShin Foundation here in Richmond, Virginia. I'm John Shinholser, co-hosting with Nathan Mitchell over here. Today we got an awesome lineup. We got Commonwealth attorney from the county of Henrico in Virginia here. In today's topic, we're going to talk about marijuana became legal today in the state of Virginia and what impact that might have in the criminal justice system and, of course, the recovering community. But before we get started, I'm going to let our guest introduce herself. Shannon.
Hi, it's Shannon Taylor, Commonwealth attorney for Henrico County. Glad to be here.
Woo woo!
Welcome back.
And a staunch supporter of the recovering community, I might add. You know,
Yes.
we've been knowing each other for years now, really.
Yeah, before I even got in this position, I was doing defense work.
When you were just a defense attorney.
When I was just a defense attorney.
Just a defense attorney. And Nathan, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. Nathan Mitchell here. I'm a person in recovery from a substance use disorder. Welcome back. Great to have you.
Thank you.
You've been in this position for 10 years now, I think, right? 2011?
Yeah, frighteningly so. Since January 1st, 2012, actually.
2012.
Yeah,
so
almost 10 years.
Yeah, almost 10 years. That's amazing. So you've seen a lot in the recovery community as far as, drug laws and policies. This has to be something different that you might tell us. Did you ever expect that we would see this?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's starting January 1st of 2012, no. But clearly through what we've been seeing over the last, I think, 5 years, once we saw the states out west legalizing marijuana, and then of course, the idea of what we've been hearing from the public about wanting to legalize recreational marijuana, so it's being treated like alcohol. And when I saw that movement, I was expecting that something would change. And then, of course, when the Democrats took control of the General Assembly, they made that very clear that that was a priority.
I don't think nobody argues with the need to have, legalized use for over 21. And of course, that opens up new territory, I guess, for prevention and taxation and resources. And of course, there's going to be a shift in addiction, I'm sure. I don't think it'll be worse. I'm quite sure it's going to actually be a little bit better because I know historically one drug replaces another. But if you got a less harmful drug replacing a more harmful substance, then there's got to be a pretty good effect and impact there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're hearing from that I've been paying attention to what's happening out west is the notion that perhaps there's going to be a push to regulate the potency of the THC. So right now there is, because this is literally brand new and we of course haven't established our marketing yet in the Commonwealth, the notion of how much THC should be in a particular product. And so I think what we've heard is that sometimes there can be up to 30%, and which is pretty significant THC. And so while we are watching, like that could be part of the dialogue when we talk about marketing, about what they're going to allow the stores to sell in terms of the amount of THC, like capping the amount. So I'm watching that. I'm also, trying to figure out about how that potency pertains to certain of these really extreme reactions we've seen with people who have been under the influence of THC. When I say extreme, we hear about people who have been kind of in like a psychotic, so to speak, state.
You can smoke it till you go into psychosis.
Exactly. And so, for me, for public safety and for the health of well-being of individuals, we want to make sure. So like when you're drinking alcohol, if you're getting 14% in your wine, or if you're going to go full-blown grain alcohol.
Agree. Yeah. Let me
100% proof.
Let me throw a notion out at you, just so we've had some real weed experts on here in the last year or so, and what I've discovered was that number one, higher THC, lower THCs might get you higher than higher THCs. Number two, some strains of plants are good for mental illnesses. Some are good for anxiety. Some are good for depression. However, some plants are terrible for anxiety. So I think this will evolve as time goes on.
Right.
And we'll know what plants are good and what aren't. But I want to throw you a quick curveball here.
It's just starting off straight.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
And this is an important one. I want to talk about probation parole, okay? I don't think everybody on probation parole, if you're not an addict, if you don't have a substance use disorder, you certainly should be allowed to drink alcohol while you're on probation and parole. So you should be allowed to smoke weed if you're 21 and older, as long as you're not in a drug court, or if you don't have a substance use disorder. Is there any discussion with that particular wheelhouse?
Oh my gosh. With everything else that we've been discussing regarding probation and violations, that's something that I have not been able to find out the answer, only because I literally have not asked that question again with everything else going on. But I think that's a good point. You know, the idea being that if you're just somebody who's on probation for having, you know, stole something from a store or, you know, something else that is
Unrelated to substance use disorder.
unrelated to substance use disorder. If it's lawful to use,
To
then
consume
it
and have it
should
in your
not,
system.
right. It should not be a technical violation, just like alcohol. If you were to consume alcohol, that would not be a technical violation.
But it'd be important to say if you are mandated to a recovery program, if you're not,
Absolutely.
you're supposed to abstain from get high drugs.
Right.
Now they're all going to want to run out and get a weed card, you know, medical marijuana.
Yes.
This is one curveball after another here. So.
Well, you know, and the medical marijuana aspect is making sure that you have doctors who are knowledgeable about the medical use and the medicinal, benefits
Right.
for whatever your diagnosis is. And I understand that at least when we were talking about the approving of the medical marijuana I think it was 2 sessions ago, there was talk about making sure that your primary care physician had that knowledge. So now, again, going forward, are we going to want to make sure that when you are getting your medical card, that you're getting the authorization from an approved doctor who has
An addiction specialist,
an addiction
perhaps.
specialist, right? And you know, or something of the nature that you've got somebody who does know their THC. I mean, I used to be kind of, I guess, snarky when I would say, you know, when I'm going to a weed shop out in Colorado, why am I going to rely on, you know, James to say, you need the white oleander for this, or you need the purple haze for that.
Kush,
right.
man.
It's because I'm like, dude, other than, you know, you growing it or you've been smoking it, like, how do you know what's really good for me?
Right.
Because we also talk about the impact, just like with any other, you know, mood altering substance, anything like that. It depends on the person who's using it, right? So we might use the same product, but the effect it has on you will not necessarily be the same effect.
A lot of science to evolve from
Exactly.
this, and I'm excited about that. Nathan, I know you're itching over there.
Well, and you know, as we talk about this, of course, you know, adult use legalization is for 21 and up here in Virginia, and you know, I see this as an incredible opportunity for individuals who do discover or do have, you know, and already have discovered that they have a substance use disorder, to reduce the stigma and the possibility of involvement in the criminal justice system, removes that barrier to access to recovery. And that's one of the reasons I support the legalizations, and I have supported. What I'm concerned with, you know, and you can speak on this, but I know this really isn't on you necessarily, but we talk about youth justice and individuals under 21, and it's similar, I guess, to alcohol. And I don't know, you know, I don't have the breakdown of what the law is, but we're still going to be arresting youth who are going to be involved with marijuana use. And the issue, of course, is the same issue that was brought up with the legalization when we talk about the disparity between Black and brown people being arrested versus white people being arrested. Now we're still going to continue to disproportionately arrest Black and brown youth.
You're projecting. It ain't happened yet, but you think it's going to happen like that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
historically it would.
You've got this age group of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds because they're clearly under 21.
Right.
And the question is, you know, how are they going to be treated? Well, it's still just a civil penalty. It's still the $25. I think
even for the underage kids.
And then for the underage kids, right. Except for the underage kids, if you're under 18, also has a component of wanting you to be referred to counseling and all that good stuff.
Engagement.
Right. But let's be honest again, for the young people who are using, you know, and I know this from being involved with Too Smart to Start, which is our youth advocacy education prevention program in Henrico, and working with Henrico schools, and the surveys that they have done, the notion that a child using, you know, a mood altering substance is really something about something bigger. And so we shouldn't just be saying, oh, it's a $25, you know, fine and go get counseling. You know, anytime there's a youth who's engaging in what we call, quote unquote, unlawful behavior, is because there's something really else going on. And of course, I've always been a big proponent of wanting to understand, the underlying issue for our children, for our youth, as to why they engage in certain behavior. So for me, it would be, let's not just, call this a fine and call it a day. Like, we really need to know what's going on in this child's life and how we can best serve
Well,
the
you
shit.
know as well as I do, when kids hit high school, they hit puberty.
Right.
You're going to have some people, some children, they're going to really have some deep emotional, high on the ACEs score, trauma in their lives.
Absolutely.
So when the get high product hits their brain, they're going to think, oh my God, this is a solution to my trauma.
Exactly.
But then you got the curiosity seekers and, the ones that want to pound their chest and be the brightest peacock on the playground. There's two different segments of usage,
Right.
So one would really have more of a mental condition, one versus a behavior. And that's good for the prevention people to know that difference
Right.
and in the courtroom. But, now also, you've heard of MRT, MAT, medication replacement therapy. The medical marijuana is going to be big in the recovering community. It's going to be big in sober living, recovery houses. And have y'all given some thought to what that might look like or how you're going to approach that?
No, but I think again, let's see, what time is it? It's like
2:10.
we are 14 hours into our first day. So I don't know, but John, I think that's a really, really good point, and is something that as we, move forward in speaking with our treatment providers, we need to have that conversation. So when we're having our, whether it be with the recovery residences, whether it be with Henrico Mental Health, whether it be within drug court, like, you're absolutely right. We need to figure out if this is going to be an accepted practice, and it does have the, again,
Benefit.
proven medical benefits, then how are we going to maneuver that going forward? So,
well, I know I know I'm personally offering technical assistance to any sober home in America, but specifically in Virginia. If you're going to have a weed house or a greenhouse, I would certainly like to be able to survey that and help you with technical advice on some do's and don'ts and what protocols, policies, and procedures should look like, but definitely what obvious relapse looks like, and just get high seekers look like. So I'm excited to be one of those collaborators and subject matter experts in that space. So moving forward, as your groups and organizations gather, keep that in mind. You don't have to be alone trying to figure this stuff out.
Oh no, I mean, me, I've never been one to try to solve a problem by myself anyway. It always requires a multi-departmental, multi-subject matter expert collaboration.
Yeah. Now, what's your feel from the public safety providers with this?
Well, I think one of the concerns that I have expressed publicly, is the driving while impaired.
Right.
So right now, and I'm sure I regret that I did not listen to Jim Michelle, on Tuesday, because she is definitely an expert.
They are an expert.
They are, yes. And she's, and she has done really great. Like, I'll tell you, has, as soon as she got into that position, has been, coming to me and saying, Shannon, what can I do to educate you more on, marijuana? And I really, really appreciate that she has, put herself out there and has been very, very much about wanting to educate people. So
that's new to me too.
Okay. So anyway, so the idea being, I've had these conversations about the driving while impaired, and the notion being that any of the experts, if they have come to speak about this, is the idea of testing. So we know with alcohol, there is a reliable, quote unquote, reliable PBT.
They say it's reliable, because I got DUI in 79 and I blew drunk, but I was stone cold sober, man. So
we get that, you have that preliminary breath test there on the road, and then you go down to take, the test down at the
cognitive,
exactly. And then all the field sobriety tests. Right. So, we have some mechanism, which is why states have been able to, delineate whether it's 0.08 or 0.1 to be your BAC level, to be quote unquote impaired or not impaired. Now, and that's done because the way that alcohol is metabolized, it's on the spit. So it's in the saliva. THC, of course, is metabolized in the blood. So if you want to get a reading of THC, it has to be done through a blood draw. which for anybody who has, either seen a traffic stop or been involved in a traffic stop for impaired driving, it's not like that happens in 30 minutes. It is a process that takes as much as, like 2 to 3 hours. And the notion of when to get that blood draw, and how quickly, since the time the person ingested the THC, the immediate ingestion has the highest point of THC, and then the THC level drops quickly, but the impairment is, kicking in. So the question is, some of these states out west have been dealing with should it be 0.03? Should it be something else? Or they have come up with just a block it, which I call the per se. It is per se unlawful. You cannot smoke and operate a vehicle at the same time, which for public safety makes it really, really easy. But obviously, then, some concerns and getting to a point that Nathan said earlier about the kind of the criminal justice, the inequities response that this law is supposed to be trying to cure. There are some who still believe, well, if you do it that way and it's just per se, how do we know that we're still not going to have more African Americans being pulled on the road versus, whites?
This is how you can tell.
So
I got that already solved. When you start seeing them show up in court here in the next 90 days,
right,
with how many people are showing up for too many seeds, too many ounces, too many plants. If you get, check, you got to think about that.
Well, I can, there's a lot of things going on there. And in terms of priority, I think that it's important that your listeners know that we got bigger fish to fry than to go whether or not you bought 4 seeds or 10 seeds or however many seeds you got. We are really, and I'm not going to speak for Chief English, but, from my perspective, we are really trying to focus on the, what can be the potential harm aspect of use, and not trying to get into the semantics of, the who gave who what at what time. I will say this too, the way that this law was carved out, and I'm going to say carved out because literally there's 3 different timelines that are being utilized in this new law. You've got the 3 components that are effective today. Then there's the reenactment for the next level in 2022. And then you've got the next level, which is in 2024, when we're talking about the capitalism aspect of it, the marketing aspect of it. And anything can happen between today, July 1st, 2021, and January of 2024. So, and if there's anything that shifts and changes between that time that deviates from what is written here today, that's going to be a lot to keep up with for the public. So it's, that's why I don't want to worry about do you have your name tag on the plant? I'm like, I don't care if you have the name tag on the plant.
I forgot about that little rule.
I'm just like, I don't care about that. But I will say this too, the idea with law enforcement, this is a situation where while I may not, care that, John Doe is smoking a joint, and even though it's unlawful on the sidewalk, or walking through Dory Park, the reality is that they need to know that there are people who do care, and those people will be calling the police. And so police are going to have to respond because that's what they do. And and I'm going to, stand behind law enforcement that if the citizens, call them out, they have a job to do. And so what we don't want to see is that, dissolve into a disastrous situation. But we are going to have to, keep an eye out for that as we move forward.
Well, I predict that it won't be as big a deal as people fear.
That's good.
I predict that the word fear is going to be, false evidence appearing real,
Right.
So I think 90 days from now, 6 months from now, you'll have a trickle of cases coming through the courtroom, but a lot of them will be a whole lot to do about nothing,
And I really hope, John, that you're right about that. And I would support that notion that this is, it's not the Chicken Little, like the sky is falling. So.
Nathan, what's up, buddy?
Well, and I'm glad you brought the public consumption up in your conversation, because it is important to note what is actually legal here. It is not legal. It is not lawful to be able to smoke or consume in public. It is
Correct.
in the privacy of your own home or a friend's home with over 21, right?
But eventually it probably will be because you can drink in public. So I think by 2024.
Well, well, you can't drink in public like me just walking down the road. We're not
but
in New Orleans.
but in a restaurant, an outdoor
yes,
eating area.
Right, which is, of course, an area that's regulated by ABC.
Right. So I think there'll be outdoor smoking areas. Probably.
That's possible. Yes.
Yeah, and I could see that like at
Nice,
a
Debbie.
musical festival.
You
or
can
something like
you can
that.
grow grapes on
Hi,
the side
Debbie.
of the road where people can see it.
Oh yeah, you know Debbie, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is illegal to consume marijuana in public. It will remain illegal for anyone under the age of 21 to consume, purchase, or possess. So we don't have retail marijuana here yet in Virginia.
Right.
So how are people getting their weed right now?
That's a
how
really-
are people smoking right now?
The weed fairy it came overnight.
I think the answer is always Amazon.
Well, but it does because I actually. What are the laws about transporting state to state? Like if I go to DC,
it's unlawful.
it is unlawful.
Yeah.
So I can't go to DC, load up on brownies, and come back to
No, but
Richmond.
a passenger pigeon doing his regular run can drop
Yeah,
seeds
but that
off.
drone that everyone's buying right now on Amazon.
Oh wow. Okay. And to be clear, so it. Forgive me. Let's see. It's lawful to carry up to an ounce on your
Yes.
on your person.
That
right?
that is considered to be personal use.
Personal use.
But-
That is a
but,
lot.
but not in a car. It's got to be in the trunk if it's in your
Exactly.
car.
Got to be in the trunk. Okay. And you are. How does the pound? So I get okay. So up to a pound, if you have
So-
beyond an ounce, up to a pound, it's a $25 fine. But beyond a pound, you're a
It could
felon.
be business as usual.
Because at that point,
You're distributing.
you're distributing.
Okay.
Right.
So distribution is still against the law.
Yes, and this I think this is also something that's really important that I regret isn't getting kind of like probably I think it's not getting enough attention. But the reality is that we've had more homicides and robberies surrounding marijuana deals than any
Yeah,
other
that's a cash
unlawful.
business to be for robbing these guys.
Yeah, and and that can we, I don't want to jump ahead, but like then you also talk about the black market,
Right.
and that is still a
And
thing
that
out in
would-
Colorado.
yeah,
and
And that won't go away until
that's not
until 2024 when they really fix this stuff.
well, let me tell you about that. So the notion about the tax. Now remember, in 2024, these lawful retail shops are going to be taxing 40%.
Yeah, if it's cheaper to do black market weed, like California,
Exactly.
you could have a
Right.
problem like that.
So for example, while I am respecting the fact that, we are all about capitalism and that's really great. Interestingly enough, we don't really treat marijuana like alcohol because
That's
our
right.
alcohol is done through the state.
Right.
And the state, of course, does not have to have the ability to tax as much as, as a corporation does because corporation's there to make money, as is the state. But for example, I think that the state, if ABC were to get into the business of selling marijuana, that it could be at a much lower tax rate than what.
Well, you got a 6-tier system for and that's 6 levels of taxation, which might push them out of the zone of the black market pot market.
Well, yeah. So we got to figure out what that's going to look like.
Well, tell the bureaucrats don't get so greedy. The politicians don't get so greedy. Let people grow and sell it just like you might a bottle of wine.
Yeah, but everyone's trying to find a
make
way
money.
to
make money.
Yeah.
Well, I remember those conversations concerning tax and looking at what happened in California and in the West and what we were going to do here. And my understanding is we kind of came in around high middle of what other states were doing. Is that?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what the tax rate is out there.
I was more concerned with where the money was going to go, that revenue. And so, if you look at what ended up happening, the carve out, especially that 25% that goes to, well, originally was supposed to go to people like us, but now is going to DBHDS to go to fine still, but going to CSBs to do prevention and treatment work. So now we need to ensure that money actually does go to treatment and prevention work.
Oh, I actually thought I thought that was going to schools.
There's
a 40. I think it's 40% goes to the schools.
Okay.
25% goes to
CSBs.
Yeah, CSBs.
Gotcha. Okay,
I forget where the rest goes.
Yeah.
Well, the localities get some, and then the education gets some. CSBs get some, and they got that diversity fund to get some. I mean, they definitely got it divvied up pretty
Right.
good.
Yeah.
But now a little word of, I would say, observation. I've noticed, seems to me like a group of people want to put their best foot forward and make sure this thing rolls out, and we get the best result and outcome. And then there's other groups that are still kind of stuck in the old thinking that ain't never going to work. We got to keep hammering away. I mean, do you see the political fight dwindling, or is it going to stay smoking hot
Whoa.
for a while?
Well, I think if anyone's paying attention, that we have an election in November, and looking to see what the the statewide campaigns are saying. I understand that the Republican Party definitely wants to make this marijuana legalization a thing. They want that to be part of their
Campaign
campaign,
rhetoric.
right? So and they have, vowed that if they take back the House in November, that they're going to turn all of these, laws back. So, it is being talked about in, in two different ways. When I talked about it from the public safety standpoint, you know, we just want to make sure, and I said this, that if this was the track that we were going to do, it needed to be done in an organized and purposeful fashion. And I think people are concerned about whether or not, because of this kind of three-tiered approach, whether or not, you know, is this going to be like everything else, where you're going to have bumps in the road as you move forward? And
There'll
we
be
kind of figure
growing
things.
pains for
Yeah, there'll be
sure.
growing pains, and some of that's to be expected, and that's not a reason to be against something.
Right.
The question is just like, do we feel like we have enough guidance to kind of maneuver through those bumps in the road?
Yeah, you always got to watch out for the spoilers. People sabotage, what could be a pretty good thing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I just, I'm excited because I'm tired of watching these people get their life ruined with criminal justice problems, community problems,
Right.
and I'm also excited that we can do some good work in the recovery industry as a result of this. And I'm excited about, we have a new medication now that can help with addiction.
Right.
And I'm excited that we got some people out there that are working hard to get the right strains, the right THC level, get them lined up with the right ailments and illnesses. And, I've never yet met a kid that died from smoking weed, and I've never met a parent yet that wouldn't rather their child be smoking pot than buried because of an opiate overdose. And then we got a lot of real science and data coming out, but you still got a lot of, left wing, right wing data and science that
Right.
is or isn't real, like some of it. We need some real science, some real data.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Nate, what's up, buddy?
Well, you bring up probation and criminal justice system, and there are, and I tried to get some figures before the show of how many people in Virginia are locked up on marijuana charges, cannabis charges, and it's without going FOIA and without doing some really deep research, that's not really my bag. I can't see that number, but I know
Right.
we know.
A lot of people got violated and went back to prison
Right.
because of the pot.
And
the
are
original
still-
charges might not have been weed, but
Right.
that's
Right.
what got them up there.
Right.
That's what they don't count. They don't count it like
So,
that.
so
Right.
I believe there was an effort when the bill was being thrown around in the General Assembly to fix that situation, but I know that didn't pass. So, what efforts do we need to go moving forward to help the people who are caught up in the criminal justice system on a violation or even still serving time for an original charge, or and getting moving towards expungement of these charges, which the people might have in the past.
Right. So the expungement. Now I can definitely talk about that. Because like I said earlier, like actually, let me just go ahead and talk about the probation aspect of things.
Sorry.
I have not seen anything yet from the governor's administration. Secretary Brian Moran, under his branch. I call it branch, but like under his group, he has the Department of Corrections who oversees probation and parole. And I have not, heard from my probation officer, District 32, about how they're going to treat. And if she probably has told me, and I literally have probably forgotten, but that's something I'll follow up on today to figure out, like, have they received any guidance? And then the other part of that too is that your probation office is, the eyes and ears of the court, so to speak. I mean, a circuit court judge has put somebody on probation for whatever reason they feel necessary. And so to the extent that you have judges who might feel like they still want to know if someone is tested positive for marijuana, then that probation office will respond in kind to that. It won't necessarily be a technical violation, but it may be something that a judge still wants to know. I have no idea if that's really happening, or if everyone's going to take, if all the judges in Virginia are going to say, this is now lawful to use, and therefore it will no longer be a technical violation. Like I said, I'm going to get back to you guys on that.
Yeah.
The expungement part, however, is something that is really important. And so that's part of that delayed. we had a CLE. I tell everybody I've got my cheat sheet here. So we actually had the prosecutors group association had a little crash course CLE on marijuana about 2 weeks ago. I think it was for 2 hours. We talked about it.
Oof.
And there's two things happening. There's the expungement, which we're calling it quote unquote expungement, but it's really a sealing of people's records, which is a bill that was signed into law, but it doesn't come into effect until I think 2024. And that's to give state police the time to get the right software so that when records come through from the circuit court clerk's office to state police, they're not going to be wasting hours and hours to doing something by hand, that they can actually just press a button and do. With this marijuana, and knowing that we have the legalization of simple possession, do I think that that should be something that is automatic? Absolutely. Is this something that that state police are prepared to do quite yet? Probably not.
No.
But, to the extent that we have the ability to present something to the court and say, look, this is no longer a violation, just like we did with habitual offender. Y'all remember that old driving charge from back in the day? Then it should be removed from somebody's record. They shouldn't have any, simple possession on anybody's record. Of course, if you're being issued a summons, that won't be on your record anyway, because when you got a summons, they don't fingerprint you. So that's the stuff that goes to state police to put you in the system to actually have a record. But I mean, I don't know what those requests will look like to my office starting today or tomorrow. But we're going to be paying attention to that, and we'll look to see what else is going on in that person's record. But it should at the very least be sealed, at the very most be expunged.
I want to just remind the listeners that if you're in recovery and you're in the type of recovery process I'm in, and Nathan's in, and abstinent is your route, you still got to be abstinent. Just because they legalize pot don't mean you can go out there and do bong hits. So don't even put that in your psychic. But with that being said, are you gonna smoke weed? Do you smoke it? I mean,
the answer is I'm not going to be smoking it. No.
I mean,
I like my wine a whole lot.
All right, that's cool.
I have my vices.
How about any other prosecutors in your office talking about it? They can't wait to fire up. I know they're there.
Well, so let's talk about that. So we saw the article in the paper where some of the big corporations have said that they're not allowing that to happen in their offices.
Right.
So,
that's lawsuit waiting to happen.
Well, it depends. I mean, I think it depends on what they're saying.
Federal agencies can have a pass, but not private.
So I've got two of my close girlfriends from college. We were just talking about it this last weekend, and they both said, yeah, we got a notice saying you can't do that. I was on a text change with some of my, I'm part of that Virginia Progressive Prosecutors for Justice. And someone asked a question saying, does anybody have a policy? Well, I mean, we are technically employees of Henrico County. I mean, even though I'm an elected official.
Can Henrico employees?
But Henrico, well, we're going to wait to see. I think I've been told that there will be a county policy or some type of notification about what county employees can do. And I think that, here's the other part of that. Prosecutors are, technically we should be held to a little bit of a different standard. And we are not going to be prosecuting anybody for something that's now legal. But I also need to make
Let
sure
me
that when
help-
you come into my office, you're ready to
got
do
your-
your
yeah,
job.
yeah.
Like I don't want you having the effects of last night's toke
that's
fest.
back to the impairment piece. But
Right.
like if I was a prosecutor and smoked weed, I'd be firing up a bong after work. I wouldn't really worry about it. And I think all across Virginia, that is now a right in the law.
Well, we have.
Now you don't want people smoking weed before they go on duty to drive an ambulance, a
Right.
fire truck, an
Right.
airplane, a bus. I get all that, and then but to throw the baby out with the bathwater, saying, "Look, we don't know how to gauge or monitor to see if you're crossed the line or not." That's like build the plane as you fly it type
Well,
stuff.
I'm having a staff meeting next week, so I'll let you know what the decision is.
Y'all gonna take a group conscience? Look, you can no smoking weed past 11 o'clock at night before a trial.
We'll send you a tray of desserts. Lots of brownies.
That was something that came up today. They were like, someone said, "So what happens if you're at a party and you don't know that you're eating the hot brownies?"
Well,
I'm like, well.
we use that in the Marine Corps when we go home on leave, man. I didn't know, Colonel.
Right.
It was a weed brownie. Tough, man. Article 15.
Well, so this has been a huge step, for better drug policy here in Virginia, right? And I know that there are some things happening, in Henrico County, the drug diversion, what is it, facility that's being built.
The detox.
The detox, facility, and so that's what, a few years down the road.
I think
Is it?
Oh, I think it should be done by end of next year. Like I think that
So they're building it now. They broke ground.
Well, I
You don't know.
confess that I don't know. I think I just remember them talking about putting the RFP out and then having the contract.
Did they
awarded.
find a doctor yet or a provider?
That
You
has
don't
not
know?
been shared with me yet.
I got you.
I know. I'm sorry. I know blindsiding you with things that we didn't talk about beforehand, but the idea of where we're going with drug policy here in Virginia and moving towards, hopefully moving towards a better, less in
Mental health, healthcare versus.
Oh yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So this is something that I am really focused on. So John, we're always part of different types of work groups that are out there, and we saw last session that Delegate Sally Hudson from Charlottesville, put in a decriminalization, or maybe just defelonization, reclassification of Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drugs.
User amount.
Yeah, and there is also what's happening now. The national trend is really going to a harm reduction focus, and so
the Portugal model.
Well, and I confess I don't know.
Well, you Google Portugal,
Okay,
great
I'll do
videos
that.
out.
So, I've had conversations with friends in other states that are talking about like the harm reduction model, and that is something that Virginia is talking about. But the question is, what conversations were happening prior to the pandemic, and where can we pick up those conversations now? So I feel like that we are recognizing more and more about the public health aspect of substance use disorder, and but looking to see how we balance that with public safety. And I feel like that 50% is really more like 70-30. Like I think it's definitely more the public health aspect. But we are Virginia. We take a long time to change things, and so there's right now still a component of public safety part of the conversations, and you've got people who are. I think we should recognize that while people may be coming to court for other offenses other than drug charges, but they committed those offenses because of
some reason related to addiction related.
Exactly.
So
we need to have resources still in the criminal justice system to help those individuals.
So how's the flow of fentanyl into the community going? Is it strong as ever? Slowing down?
No, it's bad.
It is bad.
It's really bad. And we are also seeing an increase in meth, because now what used to be, cooked in the quote unquote, as we used to say, cooked in the trailer park, because that was the stereotype, 15, 20 years ago. Mexican cartels have taken care of that. They're like, hey, we'll cook it down here and send it up.
They got pipelines.
And they've got major pipelines.
Do y'all still do like multi-jurisdictional raids and busts and
That's really more of like that's the DEA task.
stuff?
Yeah. So nothing like that's on a local situation.
No information you want to give us now.
So
You heard it here first, folks.
so let's speak locally for a minute. I have noticed a trend in Henrico. Last couple of years, they've been very serious. They've had some great conversations and discussions. I personally feel they could have done a lot more toward, helping with the recovery piece in the community with the non-government organization. But nonetheless, they listen. You may or may not know, we now have Tony McDowell on our board of directors, which is the public safety deputy manager for Henrico. We're glad to have him here, and a lot easier to get hold of somebody. But he was always accessible. But I don't want. You're right. You mentioned COVID, and a lot of things shifted during COVID. A lot of pivots took place. But I do want to pick up where we were before COVID hit. We had a strong momentum going.
Absolutely.
We were looking for strong support to our community from the decision makers, and and I understand of the complications with COVID, but there's a ton of revenue coming from the COVID money they're going to talk about in August, and all these counties, the block grant just got doubled. So the CSBs will get double the money, but I still don't see these agencies really trying to, send some dollars down to us. I mean, you know how valuable we are.
Well, yeah, and obviously I can't speak to all of that, but what I think is where the conversation needs to go to is where are we lacking our
in
services?
capacity,
So because right now we talk about what happens about someone overdosing, they go to the ER, they're streeted within 24 hours?
Usually 2 hours, man. You're alive. Can you walk? See you later.
Exactly. And so, we always talk about points of contact in a system, like whether it be
missed opportunities for engagement.
And we talk about the continuum of care.
Right.
And so we need just like, as that I'm a huge fan of you guys. I'm a huge fan of the recovery community. However, I feel like there are so many other things that are actually non-existent. So like this idea that why is there not a detox facility? Like, why do we been going on?
Well,
all
news
this
flash. When I got clean in '82, every hospital in Richmond had a detox center, and they took you in and they kept you for 30 days, and you were linked into the community when you got out.
And where did that go?
Well, went to the criminal justice system. They did it away with reimbursement
because it was the war against drugs.
That's right. Well, we're here. We're available. We don't street nobody over here at McShin. Right. We were open 365 days when a lot of providers were closed. Matter of fact, guys were coming to McShin saying, "Hey, the jail wouldn't take me. I got violated, but they wouldn't take me. I got nowhere to go." Well, you come into one of our recovery houses,
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like that, there needs to be, we need to fix the system involving our hospitals, and we need to re-engage what was happening in the city of Richmond, but re-engaging the NGO response to somebody who has gone to the ER for an overdose, get the volunteers to come help, convey the information of like, this is where you can go. We've got a bed for you right now, blah, 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 blah.
We got that, but
but who's calling you from the hospital?
Nobody.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or who's funding us to go over there and get these people?
Right. And that's what I'm talking about. And then I think also, when we talk about the detox, if back in the day it used to be the hospital, so now we're going to have these facilities, and the facility we have for Henrico has 30 beds. And it's
I mentioned that in an editorial.
Yeah. And so, what's going to happen in Chesterfield and Hanover and Richmond? Because by the way, people are not just overdosing in Henrico County. And then the other thing about like what is needed for that true, for the individual who actually needs inpatient services, and how we help with, the housing, getting stay, like, because they stay at your place, but when they are ready to leave there, where's the next housing thing, and where's the next housing placement, and then getting the jobs, and trying to figure out like what the co-occur, like the continuum of care. And are we talking about it's not the same model for people with co-occurring disorders as well as what's going on with women and the trauma that a lot of women have been incurring, and like they need an additional element. Those are the conversations that we need to talk about and start having now, because
Well, I started them in 2000.
yeah, well, we got to get
Yeah.
first of all, we're paying attention now, which is the good news.
That
And
is
second
good.
of all, we need to start the conversations again as we are, getting the pandemic under control.
Well, July marks 17 years of McShin in operation, 17 years of this non-governmental organizational response. And, if anything, the COVID-19 has underscored the value of us being here, because as John stated,
Correct.
we were here 365 days. We never locked the doors, never shut the doors. We remained open while, people trying to get in at CSBs or, get funding or whatever through governmental organizations were shut out, and still continue to be shut out as the response, continues. What are we going to do when we go to the General Assembly and we say, hey, because this happened the last 2 years, the bill to get better effective, responses to substance use related emergencies, when we go there and say, hey, we need funding, we need to have a coordinated response, we need to have individuals in there with lived experience, we can't be just treating and treating. And the only thing we can get out of the General Assembly, and we're talking a blue General Assembly right now, the only thing we were able to get out this past year was here's a list of things you can do. And
well, they did get a little VAR money. They did get a little hit there for the sober home people, but
Right.
but they jacked that up in the department. They play hard to get out the department.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're saying
Right.
though, having certified peer recovery specialists
Right.
in the emergency departments, I would love to do that.
Okay,
I would love to do that.
Hey, there's a good question for you.
So that you are touching on something that was part of a conversation I was involved in just yesterday, which is this idea that the defined term of a peer recovery specialist and where they're able to work, hospitals won't take them,
right?
Because of the liability, quote unquote, which is baloney. And then
BS.
Some bullshit.
Baloney supreme.
And then we're talking about the idea of having the specialists go with law enforcement. Like, remember that was
The
something
ride
that
along.
the ride
They're
along-
great,
try to do
man.
that.
Richmond was doing that.
Yeah.
Even in
And-
Chesterfield, when
We were
Miles
doing
was
that
out there.
35 years ago.
Right. But so again, the idea about having someone who is out there with law enforcement to be able to help, when they encounter somebody who is having a problem,
Right.
having somebody who can talk to that individual. Because again, back to what you're saying, people who have actually been through recovery and are going through recovery are the ones who are the best communicators. So that is absolutely true. And then the notion about how we're funding stuff. I mean, don't even get me started on that. I have been a very loud voice about the failure of this Commonwealth funding the public health aspect, like of mental health. And I think you can go ahead and put substance use disorder in that same bucket. I don't know why we have not done a good job, but there is, department head director Allison Land, who gives this report saying we are at 99% capacity at some of our state hospitals and 60% staffing.
Because they will lose heads and beds in the criminal justice system. Those hawks don't want to lose the customers. The lawyers don't want to lose the business. The law schools don't want to lose the students. Robert had a good question up there.
Yes.
Put Robert's question
Yeah,
back
I
up
saw
there
that. That was a good question.
about the drug courts.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. So when there are certain programs that have been documenting their success, and when I talk about that continuum of care, we're talking about somebody who can stay in long-term recovery for 12 months, doing the step down process, and then being a part of it for another 12 months. So like that 18 to 24 months. And one entity said that they had a 75% success rate when someone was able to go that long with their long-term recovery. The reason why, I see here this 58%. So
The start, don't finish.
right. So Robert said there's a couple things going on out there. First off, with the drug courts that are in existence, like Henrico, they are probation violation based drug courts. There are more that are show cause based than there are new convictions, which is why Henrico created a new path that you didn't have to have a conviction in order to have like the services offered from drug court, so to speak. And the idea that 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 people may not be completing drug court if it's on probation violation has a lot to do too with the circuit court judges that are handling those drug courts and what they are doing. Now, every judge who is doing drug courts are committed to the success of their participants. But to the question, if they don't succeed, where do they go? I regret that they do go to jail, because at that point they are in violation of their suspended sentence. And his next question about, is reclassifying going to impact that? Yeah, I can tell you that when people heard first of Delegate Hudson's bill, the very first thing that I heard from public safety was, no one will want to do drug court.
Well, a couple things about that. One is, if you're going through drug court, you're in there for 2 years. You all you do is you relapse. You test dirty, but you should stay in compliant with everything else. Well, I think that's a big win. If you can do that for 2 years and you have 3 relapses in 2 years, that should count as okay. You've passed. Don't toward the end say, "Uh-oh, too bad, you got to go to jail."
Right.
But 2, misdemeanors all carry jail time. Most of them do. You can still get a person. Obviously, I'll use the word coerce, but let's say you're facing 6 months. You want to do 6 months in jail? Would you like to do 3 months in a drug court or diversion program? And if you complete it, you don't do the other. So there are ways to finagle that, and you got to rebuild some things. But that diversion program we did in Caroline County for a few
Right.
years, won national award, state award. We only had like 3 people, over a 3-year period during Tony Spencer's reign that actually ended up in jail. So there are a lot of great options, but you got to have the willingness to do them and go after them.
And I think that you're hitting on something too, which is, as we've continued to learn and understand addiction and understanding relapse and understanding the types of substances that are being abused, used and abused, then the better off we are to know what is the best response. Because you're absolutely right. It took us a long time to realize that relapsing wasn't something that should have been penalized.
A benchmark for failure.
Exactly. It took us a long time
That's
to
a
understand
signal
that.
they need more continuous
Right,
help.
right. So, and that's the question about whether or not we have the resources, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, because that's the other thing I can't stand. I can't stand that someone in Pulaski doesn't have the same resources as Henrico, or somebody up in, let's say, Carroll County. People in this Commonwealth, for purposes of, public health, should have the same access to care. And we've really got to fix that. So if they're not completing drug court because there is a missing component to that continuum of care, we've got to figure out what's missing, and we've got to make sure that that is existent so people can be successful.
I would like to see more consumer choice, though. You look at our education system in Virginia. You can be in one jurisdiction and go to a community college in another, or a state college in another. I mean, recovery providers, it should be like that. A system should be designed so better organizations can get people from outside their area and whatnot. Things. We got a lot of great free thinking over here in McShin, man.
Well, so I think that is also true, because everyone's journey in recovery is not the same. It's an individualized journey, and trying to figure out what is the best thing for me may be may look different from you and may look different from Nathan. And I think that we also have to recognize that, and then again have a spectrum of resources that can fit, the different models, the different journeys.
Let me ask you a quick question. The Suboxone, good, bad, or problematic? It's not a thinking question.
Well, it depends.
That's right. You're damn right. That's why I put problematic out there for you. That's the safe one.
I'm gonna go with D, all of the above.
D, all of the above. Good, bad, and problematic. So we got a ton of providers out here in the community, Suboxone providers. They blew up like the pain clinics,
Right.
They blew up like, and here's something that aggravates me. Prior to the Suboxone clinics and Medicaid fully funding Suboxone addiction, we did a 5-day taper. People would taper off of opiates using 5-day step down. Great outcome. The data was better than the Vivitrol and Suboxone data. But yet in Virginia, Medicaid won't cover somebody doing a 5-day taper. I think that's a major problem. I think Medicaid should definitely cover it. If a consumer wants to taper off an opiate, do a 5-day taper, get the Vivitrol shot, Medicaid should fund that, and doctors should be supporting that instead of just taking the easy route, you know.
And I think that's where you're going to find your support for your doctors who are involved in recovery and who are involved in understanding the different
methodology,
and doing the MAT and getting your medical professionals to get involved, because you're absolutely right. Just because one thing, that the state doesn't like one thing doesn't mean that it's not
they
an
always
appropriate
throw
option.
the baby out with the
I know.
bathwater, man. They're crazy about that, you know. And then the state has a tendency to get so close to the trees they can't see the forest no more.
Exactly.
Man. That's why I'm always standing back. I ain't going in the woods, man. I'm up here on the hill. Hey, look, we're winding down our hour, and we actually cut the air conditioner off up here.
No wonder it's so hot in here.
Well,
first of all, the hot air that we're all stuck out here.
Oh man.
Well, it makes a lot of noise when we're
I
on the
appreciate
show.
that.
But any last questions or thoughts or comments?
Do you have children?
No.
Okay, so do you have nieces and nephews?
I do.
You do. What about them smoking or partaking? Are they over 21? Or your family?
That's like I'm assuming that they're not already doing that.
Well, and see, that's the question though. So you have, perhaps if you have your nieces and nephews come to you underage and talk to you, how do you tell them? What do you tell them?
Oh,
don't get caught.
Well,
don't tell your mother.
I am a stickler. I mean, so for my nieces,
You're the UVA, so don't say you're that big a
right.
stickler.
Well, okay. Yeah, I was also like 19 back then, and I'm definitely not 19 anymore. So, first of all, if whether or not they're drinking alcohol or smoking pot, whatever you want. I am one of those people who believe so strongly in that whole like brain development. So I'm one of those weird people that, kind of wish that we didn't do anything mood altering.
So you're
from
25,
18
man.
to 25.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. But to the extent, because there is research. I mean, we do know that it has an impact.
It starts with sugar, just so you know.
Don't get me started on that either.
Sugar, our engineered food supply, it all begins with that.
Oh yeah. Capitalism at its finest.
We're so screwed, man.
Oh yeah. We can't get people to qualify for the military.
Yeah.
Because they're all technically obese.
That's right.
It's terrible.
That's why I'm not obese no more. I can get back in the Marine Corps.
By the way, if you haven't seen John, he looks fabulous. He's grown his hair and he's lost a bazillion pounds.
50 pounds.
50 pounds. Yeah. So, so for my nieces and nephews who are, 25 or older, I'm just going to tell them the same thing, which is just like, be careful and, kind of know what you're dealing with, which goes back to that comment about like the potency of stuff. And you just got to, you have to trust people about if you're going to use it, you got to better know what you're using.
Last curveball. Families can have kids over drinking alcohol, right?
Not really.
Well, but they're going to have kids over smoking weed now. Is it going to be a little harder?
I mean, it's going to be the same thing. I mean, first of all, if you're a parent and you're letting your teenager go over to somebody else's house,
you shouldn't do that.
You definitely want to know what the hell's going on over there, right? And to the extent that these young people, I mean, when they're drinking booze and someone complains, police still come over and they got to come over. They
call that a raid.
Right. Well, just remember, if you call the police do have to respond.
They will come.
They will have to come.
And somebody will go to jail for the crime being committed.
So, and I regret to know there's like so many things that happen when kids are left unsupervised. And again, everyone's got we've got our own stories about growing up and life experiences, but just be smart. I mean, if you're going to be an adult and have kids over and they're going to smoke pot, please, that is against the law because the kids can't do that. It's really against the law for the alcohol too. But just think about that you're now the caretaker of all those young people in your home. Just remember that.
And if you got a hurt person trying to care for people getting hurt, you know what you're going to end up with.
Right.
Well, man, the hour goes by fast when you're having fun.
I know. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I know. Last words, then we got to go.
Hey, last words. So July 5th, Monday, July 5th, here at Hatcher Memorial Baptist Church, where McShin Foundation is, we're hosting an Independence Day celebration here from 1 to 4 p.m. We'd love to have you down. You can bring friends and family.
If I
4th of
make it back,
July,
yeah, I'll be
picnic.
coming back in from out of town.
Oh,
So
boy.
But if you're listening out there, if you're
Right.
listening on the repeat, come on down. Get some free hot dogs, hamburgers, listen to some tunes spun by Justin over there.
Oh, Justin. Like your haircut, Justin.
But yeah, so thank you for being on the show today. Great to
Absolutely.
see you.
It's great to be here.
Last words.
Well, I think we should do this again in 90 days and
All right,
kind of
see-
like
see how
take
it
a
is.
temperature out there, see what's going on.
We'll do it. We'll do it. You got it. All right, gang. Thanks for tuning in. We got 2 more. Well, no more shows this week. 1 more show. What do we
No,
got?
we're done for the week. We'll see you again next Tuesday. Guests have not been confirmed yet, but I know it's going to be a good one. I have an idea.
Next Tuesday, stripper day here at McShin. So we'll see y'all then. Thank
Thanks.
you, Justin. More later. Thank you. Here at McShin, we believe in the McShin way, which is authentic recovery support service providers, people with lived experience, bringing that experience to those who need that lived experience in recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in many things to support our mission. We believe in women empowerment.
What I love most about what we believe here at McShin is we believe in the authenticity of the peer-to-peer approach.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in giving people opportunity.
Here at McShin, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
At the McShin Foundation, we believe in helping people reach their full potential.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in multiple pathways to recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in placing principles before personalities to help spread hope.
Here at McShin, we believe that recovery is possible and that any person seeking recovery can become a more acceptable, responsible, and productive member of society.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in self-discovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in saving lives and offering second chances.
Here at McShin, we believe you can do this.
Here at McShin Foundation, we believe that we can only keep what we have by giving away, which is why we continue to help others like us seek and find recovery.
We'll get